Rifkin. He is the VP and Head of Advanced TV Strategy at Equativ. Liz Buhn, VP of Platform Content and Marketing at VIZIO. Bill Condon, Vice President of Enterprise Sales and Partnerships at Xumo. Thomas Dodson, Senior Program and Platform Operations, Programming and Content at Roku. And Erick Opeka, President and Chief Strategy Officer at Cineverse. Finally, Steve Rifkin, Chief Operating Officer at OTTera. Hey, everybody. So we're going to find out what it takes to be real TV today.
Thank you, Eric. And sorry, I jumped in a little early. For those joining on the West Coast, good morning. For those joining from sunny, cold New York, good afternoon. I want to thank everybody for joining. And I want to introduce our panel. Our topic today is, when will FAST just be TV? I can also attest to the fact that there is nothing artificial about Erick Hansen. He is 100% organic. So I'd like to introduce our panel. We have Liz Buhn from VIZIO, Tom Donahue from Roku, Erick Opeka from Cineverse, the great Bill Condon from Xumo, and Steve Rifkin from OTTera. And I'm going to give them all a chance to introduce themselves.
I have to figure out what it takes to be called the great. I'm happy to go first. I'm Liz Buhn, Vice President of Platform and Content Marketing at VIZIO. My team leads all of the marketing efforts of our entertainment offering and our streaming experience, which includes a very deep content portfolio and, of course, our own free streaming service, WatchFree+. So I'm excited to be here today. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Liz. Might as well go to the great Bill Condon since you named him.
Perfect. Andrew, I'll definitely send you that monthly stipend for being my hype man on all panels. I greatly appreciate that. So Bill Condon at Xumo. Those who don't know us, we are a streaming TV service, joint venture between Comcast and Charter, focused on 3 key areas: Xumo Play, which is our consumer-facing application with 300+ FAST channels, our operating system and device group, which Xumo Stream Boxes, Xumo TVs, and last but not least, our enterprise business, which is what I am the VP of Sales for. So that is the creation, curation, delivery, measurement, and monetization of FAST channels. And I'm excited to be part of the panel, and hopefully I will retain my great title after this one is done.
Well, Liz is coming for it, Bill. So, we'll see. Erick, see you there.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Erick Opeka. I'm the President, Chief Strategy Officer of Cineverse. At Cineverse, there's really 2 sides to our business. There's the consumer side, where we operate a portfolio of streaming services. We're now at 47 services that we own or operate on behalf of others. We operate under every business model: FAST, ad-supported, and subscription. In that consumer business, we also manage a library of over 70,000 movies and TV series that we distribute to many of the people on this panel, among others. And then the other division of our business is the enterprise side, where we operate a platform called Matchpoint. Matchpoint basically is, if you can think of it as the operating system for companies, distributors, content owners, OEMs, what have you, that need a system to manage and operate a streaming business at scale. So we have over 200 employees in India now that support that unit, along with 50 domestically. So it's a very fast-growing division of our business. That's what we do.
Erick. Tom from Roku.
Hi, everybody. Thomas Dodson. So I run operations at Roku. So all the on-demand content, live content, et cetera, that's being made available through the Roku channel is flowing through one or other of my teams. Also quite actively involved in our sports zone, which is an exciting new exciting new aspect of the Roku device, helping users discover all the fantastic sports content that's increasingly becoming more fragmented in the space. And so and a lot of that's on direct to consumer applications. Obviously today we're focusing more on the live operations side of my business, which is supporting all the fast channels. But we also support the subscription side of our business. So all the discrete live events coming through Paramount Plus, VIX Plus, et cetera.
I don't think we're getting out of here without talking about sports. So and live sports streaming. We're glad you're here. And Steve Rifkin from OTTera.
Good morning from the West Coast, OTT.X. I'm very happy to be here. Steve Rifkin, Operations Officer and co-founder of OTTera. Been working in the space for about 15 years, and OTTera has developed a very cohesive solution for the OTT streamer. We are currently powering over 2,000 fast deliveries, as well as about 300 branded applications that go basically to all operating systems around the globe. We provide, or at least I sit in a position where I help our business development and sales teams bridge the gap to engineering, and really focusing on a customer strategy that helps our valued customer achieve efficiencies at a low cost price point to get their content everywhere.
Okay. And so now we all know where we're coming from. I made a couple of quick notes. 2 enterprise, 2 operations, actually 3. So very enterprise and operations heavy, which is, I guess, leads us to where we are in the progression of moving from linear QAM delivered video into streaming. So I'm going to start with, Erick, Erick from Cineverse, when we were chatting, you have a particular view of sort of the turns of the wheel in terms of video distribution. I think it'd be fascinating for us all to sort of hear that and jump into it.
Right. Well, we've been involved in the fast space since the beginning, back when it didn't have a name, when it was, I'll call it the phase 1 of fast, which was, hey, let's stitch a bunch of web video assets together that are kind of lying around. We'll put the web videos brand against it, and we'll put it on our website, or run it as a streaming app. Back then, Verizon was the I think it was Comcast Business Solutions had a solution. There's a few others, but it wasn't integrated into hardware. Xumo is obviously one of the early players in that, as well as Pluto. I think as we've seen evolve from there, kind of phase 2 ended up being companies launching their own brands, mostly independents. And the progression from there is really, you fast forward to today, I think you're now looking like 8 years into it, where the media companies have come, kind of large media enterprises have come en masse into the equation. I think one of the things that, as you've seen that evolution happen, we're still stuck, I think, in an era of path dependence on kind of legacy approaches to this. The 2 probably biggest examples of that would be linear playout itself, in its current form, broadcast one-to-many, really relatively unchanged. You could take somebody from 1930, put them in front of a TV, a linear playout, and besides it being in color, they would get it, right? And the EPG, you could take somebody from 1982, and while the EPG would be a little more less pixelated, maybe not 8-bit, they would still get it, right? And that's path dependence. I think one of the biggest opportunities in fast as it evolves is breaking the chains of path dependence on the old means of how we have consumed linear television, and throwing those chains off and really unlocking the power of things like AI, dynamic fast channels, dynamic EPGs, the deeper integration between on-demand and linear, and on and on. Not to mention all of the factors around the ad side of it. So I think that's my thinking where you're starting to see experiments in that space, but I think we've yet to see the first fast 2.0 platform emerge. I'm excited to see who breaks that first.
So I'm going to just based on what you mentioned in terms of breaking the chains and some of the old constructs, I'd like to get some input from Liz, who works sort of at the intersection of where the hardware, the EPG, the programming are all happening, and get her take on that.
Yeah, there's definitely an intersection point for sure. And to just tap on to Erick's POV on just technology impacts on cable, really. I wholeheartedly agree. As a platform, as a VIZIO platform, the opportunities for innovation far outweigh what was possible in the early days of cable. And what I love seeing right now, that intersection is, a big push from networks that are coming into the fast space. And, big networks and media companies, they're moving well beyond just streaming services and apps. They're looking at fast channels. They want to play here. And, big news, a couple weeks ago, BBC just launched their linear news channel on streaming platforms and fast. And so this is that same channel that MVPDs are paying a sub fee for, which leads to this other great example of fast evolution where, the fact that the definition of premium is even changing now. It's not just first run shows, it's scripted, it's originals, it's recognizable IP. And what my team has worked on the last year is just doing some really interesting tests with third-party subscription services like AMC Plus and Peacock. And we're bringing that subscription premium content into WatchFree Plus as a limited time offering, creating that sense of urgency with pop-up channels and using a cool new tech feature that we call content connections. And it allows users flexibility to move between WatchFree Plus and then into that SVOD service. Really cool. So we're going to keep leaning into that, fast as a seamless bridge for free and subscription models.
Because you invoked the MVPDs and their revenue streams to rights owners and providers, I feel obligated to turn to Bill, who sits at the intersection of a pair of very large MVPDs and is going to very delicately respond to where we are in the transition that we're talking about.
Yeah, it's amazing, Andrew, how seamlessly these conversations keep flowing from one to the other. It's like we kind of got together and scripted this or really planned. So I'm very, very happy with how this is flowing. Yes, so I think Xumo sits in a really interesting space. As Erick mentioned earlier, we were one of the first ones out there in the fast game. And I think you looked back in the day, the fast channels, the Plutos, the Tubies, the Xumos rose up to kind of take on big TV and change it. And we've been integrated, and I think we're changing it now from the inside for the better. And I think I look with Xumo's path, I'd look at it almost in three stages, where back in 2020, we got acquired by Comcast. And I think Comcast's vision of looking across, how they're going out and helping consumers and their place within this ecosystem, it's all kind of tied to connectivity and consumer choice. So acquiring Xumo, bringing us in, integrating us across, both in the X1 platform, which is sort of the paid MVPD consumers, and their stream boxes, which is from the connectivity standpoint, consumers, but they don't potentially traditionally have a cable service, but they use the internet. So integrated, growing investment, testing and learning about putting fast apps in different areas. And then fast forward to about a year and a half ago, where I got a new parent. So now I've got two parents in terms of Comcast and Charter coming together, and Xumo as the joint venture. And once again, I think you look at the end goal there as the connectivity and consumer choice. So pulling this together and evolving into devices now, you're in a Charter household, whether you're a full video subscriber or internet only, you will get this Xumo stream box, which will serve as either your set-top box or your streaming box only. And I think Charter has been very innovative in terms of giving their consumers access and choice to these different devices and allowing them to use the Spectrum app to sort of stream. And the overall vision of this idea of connectivity and consumer choice is pulling this stuff together, whether it's a Xumo stream box or within a TV, this CentOS operating system to potentially link both what video choices you're watching or subscribing to. Do you have, full-on cable? You're paying for linear channels. Do you have subscription video on demand and fast, and pulling that together into one area? And I think sort of that third act for us is expanding the footprint of this Xumo in two forms. One, in terms of the Xumo Stream Box, because there's another MVPD partner called Mediacom, which signed on, and they'll be launching their devices in market. And I mentioned the different TV partnerships, working with the Hisense, with the Pioneers, with Element, in distributing this operating system, this content, these platforms to these different consumers. And that third piece is the enterprise side of things. I think both Liz and Eric mentioned a bunch of these partners, like the NBCs, these partners that want to go out, and content partners, and reach folks. So enterprise gives them the ability to not only deliver it on Xumo's platforms, but to partners like VIZIO and other partners outside of that universe. So once again, connectivity, consumer choice, and I do think this idea of convergence is coming. So we've sort of seen that where, but a year and a half ago, fast channels, Xumo has always been an app on Comcast, X1, and Stream, but we are now integrated into the EPG, into the guide. So you're switching from a QAM universe right to a fast, and the consumer's brain's not blown like, oh, wait a second, I'm now going from traditional TV into streaming TV. It's TV on a television for free with ads. I think we're starting to understand that this is streaming television, and the convergence and the evolution keeps going. But echoing on Eric and Liz, it's consumer choice and opportunities and exposure, and it's test and learn from some of these large broadcast companies.
So, we got to a few things. I mean, I think it's fascinating that of the early contenders, Xumo, Pluto, Tubi, probably count Plex in there because they've been around a long time. Xumo went to a distribution owner, and by the way, congratulations on having two parents now.
Thanks. I feel complete.
Do you?
I do.
And I'm sure they feel good about it. But Pluto and Tubi both went to individual rights owners, right? So it's kind of like one to Paramount, one to Fox, and so there is this moment we're in where content takes platform goes with platform. We're not even going to talk about retailer buying platform, which we're not going to talk about. So this is a fascinating time to be in the business, but I'm really curious. I want to hear from, I actually want to hear from Roku, who have sat there as one of the most distributed, proliferated devices and platforms doing IP streaming since it began, and with 70+ million distributed devices. This must be fascinating for you, Thomas.
Absolutely, right. And I think device manufacturers have a unique opportunity in terms of being able to sort of manage that user experience, right? I don't think we're gonna get into things like low latency streaming and all the rest of it, but when it comes to live sports and where that's all going, that becomes a really important aspect that users care a lot about, right? Like, how close to real time are you when you're watching a piece of content? These more and more premium content partners that are coming into this ecosystem care more and more about the security of their content, right? And things like DRM become a bigger topic. And so I think that as a device manufacturer and sort of managing the client, there's some big opportunities there for us to really differentiate. And we're seeing that with the streaming of the Super Bowl and stuff this year. and also with Formula E coming in, we just, it was our first sort of sports league sort of bypassing broadcasters, right? That's a huge deal as we look at and going direct to the consumer, something I know they're really excited about. But with that comes a whole new slew of challenges for us to work through, right? Who's marking the ads, when, where, how is that all getting transmitted, right? So I think there's a lot happening on that front, while still really, the traditional sort of movies and TV channels. And, obviously it's all come a long way. And, Eric, when you were talking about yourself, I had this vision of a personalized TV station, 5+ years ago, right? And the technology is there now, right? And we're starting to see people doing that. I think that's really exciting. But the fundamentals are just more critical than ever, right? And so when I talk about fundamentals, I'm on the operations side, right? So things like metadata are really important. You can't, Liz was mentioning that sort of connection over to these subscription services, right? We have a very similar dynamic within the Roku channel, where we have the premium subscription service as well as the ad-supported service. But like, you have to know the connections between all of these things, right? And I think that's a really important aspect. And it's always been important, but it's more important than ever. And even touching on some of the stuff Bill was talking about in terms of the EPG and the different integrations that we're seeing on different platforms, all of that metadata is still critical, right? So I think I
promise we will get to sports and metadata, because that could be an entire day. But I do want to get to OTTera, right? Because you are sort of the incubator and launching pad for a lot of these contender brands coming in. The barriers to put a linear channel in front of tens of millions of subscribers have really come down. I mean,
correct.
I'm not going to give away my age, but that makes it, I think, really substantially more exciting, because now the established media cos, right, who have, very well-worn processes for how to produce premium content, are being challenged by upstarts, and the consumers are ultimately the judge, right? And so where you sit between some of those upstarts and sort of less established players and those audiences, you sit at that point of exchange as a creation and onboarding platform. I'm really eager to hear about what you're seeing and the direction you see it going.
Yeah, well, the first thing I'd pick up on from the rest of the panelists here is, this innovation and this opportunity that sits in front of everybody right now. The one piece that I've noticed over my time in the industry is that the evolutionary cycle has certainly escalated its clip. And, as we experiment, we can't sit and wait for that to play out without taking the initial analysis that we're getting from this metadata and the data that comes back into our warehousing to take the next iterative step. And so one of the things that I think OTTera has done successfully with our brands, and I like how you said the upstarts that are coming in, some of the non-traditional content creators, as well as aggregators that are centering brands around these new consumer-driven trends. They're the ones that are, I guess, out in front when they're taking a leap of faith to say, we think this works in the consumer space. And whether they got that itch off of YouTube or some other, larger aggregating platform where the rules or the lanes are not as specific as that would be on a MVPD or a vMVPD, we're starting to see that come forward, especially in the experimentation that we're doing. Both with our FAST product as well as with our OTT applications. I mean, I always like to think that we're a forerunner in some of that, because we've basically been given the mandate to experiment. That's what our customer wants when they're bringing these new brands in. And I wouldn't say we're forced to, but we are certainly incentivized from our consumers' perspective or our customers' perspective to be integrating with as many of the opportunities that platforms like Roku and platforms like VIZIO are offering us when we don't have such a visible brand per se, but we do have the ability to get that content elevated into their universal search systems or their metadata systems, where we can overlay in this cohesive, again, consumer-driven watching, that they can discover this content and be like, oh, I do love just watching things about cakes, and I'm going to watch that for the next 48 hours. I mean, that is what's happening. And whether we like it or not, we can't forget that as our audiences age out of the traditional viewing space, all of these new consumers are coming in with their own habits, and it's on us to grab their attention now so we can settle that audience base for decades to come.
So, I mean, two things. I want to say that I think the idea of a personalized, fast, or streaming TV experience probably sounds great to almost everyone except for network TV programming executives. That's a worthwhile takeaway. But that is, I mean, fundamentally, it sounds as if the trend we're going in, and that we're not, that programmers of content on the major mass video distribution platforms have to transition from being taste makers to responding to consumer taste. And for me, that type of takeaway, if that's where we are in the turning of the wheel, I mean, Erick, you at Cineverse really are an upstart content programmer, right? You can speak directly to what it's been like to have brought new brands and channels onto these platforms when they were really just getting their legs and stood up.
Right. Well, I think that's, so if you kind of look at the evolution of television, brands were incredibly important, and they gave a shorthand for consumers on what to expect in terms of programming and so forth. What's interesting is, brands, I think there's still an importance to it and they still have meaning, but they far and away have far less meaning to the youngest consumers today than people over 50, right? So, and by the way, the brand value of a lot of those brands, you look at what a lot of the legacy networks, they've turned into single IP channels. You go on America, not to pick on any particular channel, but if you go on the cable history channel, you're going to see American Pickers all day long, right? Or whatever the channel will be. My point is, as the cost constraints of running that business have kind of taken hold, a lot of the factors that made them attractive businesses to begin with, lots of original programming, splashy marketing, and other things. I think fast, we can talk about fast becoming broadcast. I actually think broadcast is trying to turn into fast, as fast as it can, because of the profitability constraints of the legacy model and how to milk as much profit out of it. So, that's a key thing to think about.
So I'm glad you mentioned profitability because we do want to transition to advertising, and I think we all make a presumption that there's this endless and expanding amount of money that's being spent around advertising to reach people, but I'm not sure it's let me ask an open question, and so this will be the first sports metaphor. Jump ball to the panel. Has the money followed the amount of eyeballs and attention and hours of viewing that fast and streaming has already kind of delivered? And if not, why not? And so I leave it to anyone who wants to get on top of that.
All right. Go ahead, Liz.
Okay. What I think is interesting, it kind of goes full circle to the earlier comment about seeing these networks and media companies coming into fast, right? So they're coming in and looking at starting up fast channels. And why this matters for buyers and advertisers is, they're accustomed to buying that linear and that, kind of premium network content. Well, guess what? It's in fast now. So it's really this like gateway and entry point for them, for what you said, the money to follow. So that's just kind of a short and sweet anecdote there, but I'm going to throw it over to Bill.
Yeah, I think the money's there, and I know we're not talking about it, but there's a company on this panel that got acquired for a significant amount of money. Just validating that platform, and the money is following. But listen, I'm a salesperson, so we want more. But to Liz's point, I do think you look at where this industry's gone on the digital side, and it used to be there was, I was around, I've got gray hair when the internet first started, and this is digital advertising and internet, and there were specialty shops and specialty budgets, and then it became mainstream, and then it was mobile, and then it was social, and that followed that same exact path. And we're starting to see the same exact thing happening now in connected TV. It's TV on the agency and buying side. There's convergence, and the education factor of FAST. And I think I've been on a bunch of panels and a bunch of conferences recently, and this idea of it's streaming TV. It's TV. It's that convergence, and I think we have a seat at the table. We deserve a seat at the table because it is, I think, Roku, VIZIO, Cineverse, all these people on the panel. There's scale, there's measurability, there's consumer choice, there's premium content. These are all the things that agencies, advertisers, anyone that wants to sell or get a message out wants, and it's here. So it's starting to follow, and we're just putting some of the rigor in place, and I think re-educating the market constantly. But it's there. I just think honestly we want more, and it's coming.
So Andrew, if I could just real quickly, because the announcement about said acquisition that we are not talking about, I think that is a clear message to the industry that the education portion is over. Like this is a thing that is happening in front of you, and if you are not on board, you are going to miss the train. I like how Bill stated that, because it's keeping the same characteristics that we saw in digital as it be in its inception, as it went through the mobile iteration into now what is connected television. And those pipelines are there, and as brands and agencies understand more clearly what those targeting capabilities are, that's the real piece. And even in some of the AVOD portions of the conversation, again, it's not fast, but in AVOD, the different techniques and interactivity that we're seeing and innovation in those ad units now, when they overlay into the fast space and we get that innovation there, we really are going to have a real unique user experience that cannot be replaced by traditional broadcast.
I'm gonna go to Thomas for his last thoughts.
Yeah, I think I'm glad you brought it up, because I was thinking around this, like programmatic, right? And like being able, like that, there's a huge growth in that, and being able to pass in what it is that the user is watching. I also think when we think about the content of FAST, right? When it started, it was mostly movies and TV shows and FAST channels, but you're seeing sort of two different things, and they're going to pull in different directions. One is the live sports, and that gets advertisers excited. But then, Steve, I'm going to go back to your cake comment, right? Like, sure, we could have a cake FAST channel, but then how are advertisers going to react to that? But I think that FAST is a really, really effective vehicle of being able to test out, different content verticals and things as well. But we have to think about the dynamic of that and how it impacts advertisers' appetites to be advertising on FAST.
And Erick, as the programmer, agree, disagree?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge in FAST is really there's a very different model in place versus traditional television. There's more participants in the model. It's a very different model than that was with cable. So it's just going to take a lot longer to get to a level of profitability than maybe the old legacy model was able to provide.
Well, for our part, as one of those companies that connects agencies and buyers to inventory and passes metadata between systems as a programmatic advertising platform, I can tell you that we're seeing a lot more interest, sort of, compounding every day around these platforms, these providers, these apertures to customers, and it's really, we've heard this before, but verging on real inflection point with dollars. So it's an exciting time. Liz, I wanted to say to you that if you were wondering how you get the great label, if you go back and watch the rebroadcast of this and hear Bill's monologue just now about how we got to where we're going, that's what makes Bill Condon great. That's why he gets the great.
I was writing notes as he was talking, just so you know.
Just if you want to know where the bar is, that's the
It's
bar.
high. It is high.
That's the bar.
I also do children's parties and magic shows too. If that's of interest to anybody. So
which just means you go wide and deep, Bill. Which is
He's COPA. He's COPA compliant.
I want to thank everybody. I think we are verging on being out of time. I want to thank everybody who joined from the panel. I want to thank everybody who joined to tune in. I want to thank our friends at OTT.X for making this happen as an opportunity for us to learn from each other. So thank you all.
do we give a quick plug for the OTT.X fronts that's coming up that everyone should go to?
There's Eric.
Absolutely. Bill.
I think we do. I think we do. But, you know, in 30 seconds or less, why are you going to the X fronts in Los Angeles, May 21st and 22nd at the Skirball Center?
More dialogue like this, in-person conversations. You have convergence of platforms like VIZIO and Roku, content providers, folks like OTTera, Cineverse, all in one room. Decent enough, intimate opportunity to engage with folks and keep this conversation going and help drive forward the convergence of CTV into television, which it is, and let's just keep preaching that gospel.
Thomas?
That's how do you follow that up?
Yeah, Bill nailed it. Bill nailed it.
Okay, so we're all just going to jump on the Bill wagon.
Yeah, he's so great. How could we not?
Well, you know what, Andrew, and everyone, we actually have a little bit of time to talk about that very topic in just a second. Before we go there, I want to thank everybody on our panel today: Andrew, Liz, Bill, Thomas, Eric, and Steve. I think you're all great, the greats. Thanks for jumping on. It turns out this CTV fast thing is catching on. And the good news, there's still opportunities for everybody that is interested in the space and is in this space to jump on the train before it starts going too fast. And we're happy to be a part of that at OTT.X, offering opportunities to connect and to share ideas and plans. So thanks everybody. With that, I am going to spend a little bit of time just talking